founders of Dipper.
Dipper is a technology platform that guides professionals of color to a better workplace, one review at a time.
Dipper is your safe space. It is the time for you to share your voice with a community that you are a part of. Visit us and join today at ourdipper.com.
Welcome to the virtual launch of ourdipper.com. Join us every Tuesday until the end of June to participate in our Shut Up and Listen themed events. Each event will feature top DEI thought leaders to discuss engaging topics impacting workplace culture. This is a perfect opportunity to share more about Dipper, a tech platform for all people of color, Black, Brown, Asian, and Indigenous professionals of all levels, including C-suite, to rate and review their workplaces. Members have profiles and can actually access the inside scoop on which companies to join and to stay away from. Members can also engage with other members on Dipper's newsfeed. So today we welcome Future, Aisha, Catalina to discuss the power in sharing your workplace experiences. But folks, please allow me some time to brag about Dipper's guests. So I'll start off with Future Kane. Future is passionate and a positive educational leader who has 2 decades, put some respect on that, 2 decades of experience in both the business and education fields. Future is a New York Times featured equity warrior author, CEO, and founder of the Future of SEL or SEL Future. Did I say that correctly? SEL, perfect. She strongly believes that one must be self-aware to empower or be an ally to others. Aisha, she is passionate about inclusion and equity and found her calling in championing of rights of the marginalized. She believes in order to make meaningful progress in the areas of racial and economic justice and cross-cultural listening, Aisha is an avid writer and vocal online advocate as it pertains to diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. And she is currently, get ready for this, working on her highly anticipated first book. Excited for that, Aisha. And we are welcoming back Catalina. She is an entrepreneur focusing on helping Black and Brown professionals make their dream career realities. How many of us want that and need that? She has worked in recruiting at Facebook, Twitter, and Asana to create pathways for hundreds of diverse professionals to break into tech. And by using her recruiting background and trailblazer energy, she founded Catalyst Creation in 2019 to continue helping diverse communities with their career needs to create lasting career confidence, abundant financial freedom, and a balanced approach to work and life. So thank you all for coming today. I'd love to dive right in and get this conversation started. This question is for all of you. Can you share an example of how you've observed the power in sharing yours or others' workplace experiences? And also let's talk about what was that impact like? I would like to open it up. I'd love to hear from you, Catalina.
Yeah, definitely. I saw Future trying to say something, so I was like, let's just defer to her.
Yeah.
I got called on, so you gotta show up. So, I think it's very powerful to share your workplace experiences because a lot of the time there's a lot of shame and embarrassment when discussing workplace things, especially when they're negative, especially when they pertain to, being a woman or a person of color, because a lot of it, I think you think is imagined because you're like, this cannot be happening. You hear the stories and then you actually go through it and you're like, no, I'm not going through that. So it's a form of like gaslighting, I feel like, from your peers immediately and also the people maybe around you in your community, because you're afraid, like, what if I say something and I'm actually wrong? Or what if I say something and it's not actually that? And so there's a lot of second guessing. But once you actually share, you realize there's so many people actually have gone through the same things. And they relate so much and you get so much support. So, for example, in my case, I worked for all these, big companies are great. And I just wasn't a fit in terms of, I was showing up fully as myself. They say, show up as yourself. I was showing up fully as myself. That doesn't go very well when you're, no one told me. So, I was, loud and fighting people and, being, and I got called things like aggressive and, I wasn't getting along with people and all of these things. And that was, maybe a catalyst for like either terminations or layoffs. And I didn't understand and no one was talking about it. So I felt a lot of shame.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know you had shared the last time we spoke, you were laid off, or was it fired? Actually,
I've been fired 3 times.
Fired 3 times, yeah. And finding the power in that, because that's something that people don't like to really talk about. And I was laid off.
Well, I talk about it because I realized I was like, you know what? I was able to see both sides. I was able to see, okay, I had a part in it, but also the environment I was in was not for me. And when you realize that, then you're able to be like, oh, that just wasn't a match. And so if I'm able to see that objectively, and it takes a lot of work and you have to like cry, do all the things, feel all your feelings. But once you're able to see that, then you're able to talk about it. And you're like, well, if I can talk about my experience and people can see that I'm okay after getting fired, I'm still making it, then maybe it'll inspire somebody else that is, looking for that next job, next opportunity, and has been fired and doesn't know how to talk about it, doesn't know how to actually like address it and things like that in conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear from you, Future, because the Future's like, it's struck a chord. Aisha too. We're all like, wait, hold on. Yes, we are definitely well aware of this. So Future, would love to hear from you.
Okay. I think makes me joyous, but also hurts my heart is I've talked to so many different people. It doesn't matter if you're she, him, they, different oppressed groups in different places and in different spaces across the world, literally. And I'd say the theme that I hear all the time is we are connected in this. And then it shows up on our resumes of, well, you hop jobs, but I think we need to get to the root of the question of why is this person hopping jobs? Let's get to the fact. Don't put the narrative on it of, well, this person is a job hopper, or we can't hire them because they're not going to stay. It's, did you create a space where I feel comfortable staying? And I think my story is I was able to get out, but I was able to get out with the support of other people, of me actually feeling vulnerable and courageous enough to talk about it. And then people actually, my family did an intervention with me. It was so bad, my family and my best friend, and intervention with me of saying, you are in a toxic work environment, you need to get out, because it was causing me mental health issues to the point where I went into a deep depression and major anxiety.
Oh my goodness.
And that's why I'm super passionate about self-care for everybody, because I know the toll. We already have enough barriers that we're up against as human beings, but then the toll that it takes, because the workplaces aren't creating cultures that are mentally, physically, spiritually safe for the workers that they say they take pride in, that are creating and profits for these organizations. So I just want to be proactive and preventative on the front end to create spaces where we could feel, like you said, Carolina, seen, heard, valued, and loved. That's all people want. But at the end of the day, how are you promoting that in your organizations? So that's a piece of my story is what
Future, let me pass out for just 1 second. Whew, that was amazing. I loved everything. I love everything that you just said. And I think many people, and I see the messages coming through, can definitely relate to that. And that's the piece we don't really talk about, like that self-care piece. And you having to think about, all right, I'm going to take action. I'm going to do this for myself, but oh my goodness, I need this money to actually live, right? Or I need this job. And that's a fine line. That's hard. Aisha, I'd love to hear from you. And don't make me really pass out here, please.
Oh my goodness. No, I mean, Catalina and Future, they just summed it up so perfectly. Yeah. I'm almost rendered speechless, and I never am. I got so much to say. Yes. But I think that one of the points that I do want to make about the power of sharing your workplace experience is that it then equips those of us who are targets of manipulations, of gaslighting. We're able to kind of recognize those strategies. And so it helps us and it equips us to kind of just like see, okay, this is the game that they're playing, right, with me. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, they're not able to see it at first for what it is. But then when you start talking about it and start seeing other people saying, okay, this is what I've also went through, and there becomes a pattern, and it's like, well, wait, what is happening here? And then you can pull themes from those patterns and see that it's all just psychological warfare on the Black psyche, on people of color, their mind, right? And then how do you then, once you recognize these things, how do you then make yourself, just put yourself in a position where you're able to kind of combat that and also take care of your mental health? So I remember when I was working in an organization, I literally, and maybe some people wouldn't have been able to, but because of the experiences that I had, I was literally able to read the writing on the wall that they felt that my time was up. So I started doing everything that I could to prepare, right? And they thought I'm just like, don't know anything, just show up in the office, happy-go-lucky. But I'm
so sorry. Can we take a step back? You said,
yeah.
Because you said something so powerful here. We can't just like brush off of that. So you could tell that it was your time of pow. What were some of those signs that you started to see?
That's a good question. So when people start to ask you questions that seem innocent about your work, but they're not really. So I had this one white woman who was in charge of HR. She said, Aisha, I would just love to understand like your thought process behind how you handle this certain situation or whatever it was. So I gave her the whole rundown of what happened. She was like, oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I was hoping you would say that. And in my mind, I was like, I was just like, I cannot believe it. Like, I kind of knew what was happening. She was trying to find some fault with what I did. And because she couldn't find it in that particular way, she just brushed it off as, I don't know, she just brushed it off, right? Yeah. So that's one of the things that one of the ways that you can recognize. Another way that you can recognize is when you start to notice a shift in tone and demeanor from your boss. Mm-hmm. And it may be something as so simple as, let me try to give an example. Oh my goodness. Oh, there's too many personal stories, but it could just be something so simple as them starting to criticize you a little bit more, them starting to say, just kind of like finding fault with little things. And it's kind of like a constant battle. That's another way that you can kind of tell. I'm trying to like think off the top of my head, like some of the kind of things that you can notice. If you're working in a team environment. So I was serving as an executive assistant once, and there was like several executive assistants. And then I would kind of notice that their friendliness towards me kind of just like took a step back. Right. Mm-hmm. And so all of those were kind of like in my mind, I was like, okay, there's a shift coming. I know it's coming and I'm going to prepare myself for this shift. Yeah. And I'm not, you just kind of like threw this at me. So off the top of my head, I can't really say it as eloquently, as I could possibly. I'm so sorry. But there's just like certain things that, and maybe later on I'll like write a post about it or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's like several things that you can totally look out for. But one of the main things is when people start to question your work and it's like a consistent theme, they're trying to find fault and they're trying to get rid of you. Like that is one of the main telltale signs.
Yeah. Yeah. What does one do in a situation like that? I know for you, Catalina, you went through various situations and you're like, hey, I'm starting my own company. But we all know that in terms of venture capital, Black women only receive 0.2%, right? So not many receiving the funding to really be, successful financially. And it's really you having to put a lot of effort in building that. So some say, hey, just start your own business, but it's not that easy to do that. What does one do in that situation? I'd love to hear from Catalina and then Future.
Yeah, definitely. And, everything Aisha was saying, I was like, oh my God, yes, because there's so many signs and you can see the writing on the wall. I think, for me, it was actually really toxic in the ways that I got fired. So that I took that all into account when I was starting my company.
Yeah.
So the first time I got fired, I actually had asked for transfer. Because I was commuting like 2 hours each way, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then they're like, oh, no big deal, blah, blah. I came in the next day and they actually fired me and were like, it's going to work. And I was like, excuse me? I'm like, what? And so that was extremely traumatic. And I was like, no, there's something wrong with me. I need to try again. That means I need to try harder because, that was on me. Like there's a first I truly failed. The second time I actually, again, got blindsided because I thought, my year was coming up. I was like on a contract in one of these companies. And I thought everything was great. I thought everything was going well. And then I actually saw that my contract date was actually changed in the system. And I asked my boss about it, and she was like, oh, that's a mistake. Everything should be fine. So I got straight up lied to. And then I got fired, like the next day. Oh. And then the third time I got fired actually was, I got laid off kind of out of the blue. And then the third time I got fired, actually, I had like what Aisha was saying, like a performance, like a PIP plan. But it was based off of like people's opinions. And I was like, can you tell me like something tangible, objective? And it was like nothing I could do at that point. So what I just did is I took screenshots of everything, like made sure, just to make sure I have it, not going to do anything with it, but just like, so you can have proof of like, okay, this happened. I say all of that because when transitioning from, whatever environment you're in, if you get fired or laid off or whatever, or you decide to leave, you really have to ask yourself, do I have an environment to actually go back into that I feel comfortable and safe in? The answer for me, after being in so many organizations, was no. I was like, I don't. And for me, kind of like Future was saying, I actually was second guessing myself. I was, I still, to this day, like I have, depression, a little bit of PTSD, and all of these experiences. And then I decided, I was like, no matter what they're paying me, it is not worth it for me to go back. And so I would not advise anyone to do that. But in that specific moment, I just felt so like alone and scared. And I was like, you know what? I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the only one that can take care of myself right now. So I'm just going to go full force. And actually had a lot of influence of entrepreneurs. I was like, this is going to be hard, but I know it's going to pay off. However, what I would say to people is, if you see the writing on the wall, please, if you feel in this way right now, like start something on the side. Just start something on the side right now that you can work towards, that you can build slowly, and then try as many times as I did. I tried 4 or 5 times. Like I went to all of these jobs. I job hopped a lot, and then I was like, I can't do this. But really try to do something on the side. Try to find that a company that's really going to fit, that's really going to make you feel safe, and that you can bring at least most of yourself, right? And those exist, but you have to know exactly what that is for you, so you can kind of find that, and use that. Because I know, Netta, I think you do this as well. Like you are at a company and you're doing kind of something on the side. So I think that's definitely the best way to go. But if it comes down to your mental health or money, your mental health is absolutely more important. And there's ways that you can actually support yourself, even for a few months, if you need to take a break.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Future, I'd love to hear from you.
I think what I tell people often, as Aisha knows, I tell people to sit with yourself, right? And the reality is I can't make the decisions for you. We all have beautiful examples and possible solutions, but the reality is you have to sit with yourself to ask yourself some really hard questions. What is the priority here? Is the priority that I need the money and that I can't leave? Is the priority my mental health? Is the priority I can get less sleep because I'm going to get this second job to then possibly leave in whatever my plan of a few months is? So I think that if you're an individual, you have to have that conversation with yourself. And then if you are a person who's in a relationship, you have to have that with yourself and then whoever you're in a relationship with, because it's a decision amongst many sometimes. And then I would say, if you are going to look for something different, when you go to the something different, or you're considering that something different, your network, go to your network, because your network might know this place. You have LinkedIn. So do you have people that you know that are already in this place? Because what people present themselves as, you have to remember where your power and your value is. I'm offering something at the table when I come to a company, and I'm interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing me. So what is that culture inside this place that you want to go to or you're trying to get to? Because that will even tell you, do I even want to apply to this place, or do I want to accept this position? Or is it going to put me in a worse place than I'm already coming from? So I think those would be my tidbits to tell people, to just really sit with yourself and collect of what is my purpose, where am I going, and what are the steps that I need to take in order to get there, by putting my purpose, my value, my legacy, my convictions first, because you matter at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think one of the things that people complain about oftentimes is they hear about the company being great, right? Or being inclusive. However, once they get involved, or maybe it's a part of the interview process, or they actually get hired, it's a total different story, right? And one may be having that individual, Aisha, I know it's triggering there. And one may be having that individual experience. Where do you go from there when that happens? And how do we start to really begin to share these stories so that we're guiding other people to the best places, right? Because the reality of it is some of us are going to own our own businesses and we're going to thrive and do well. And the other reality of it is some of us may be in organizations, working full time. And so how do we still continue to keep this movement going? Aisha, I'd love to kind of throw that question at you.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to answer. I have one line that this woman shared with me at one of my last jobs that will always stay with me. And she says, Aisha, I have no illusion of inclusion. And that's how I'm able to manage and make it through. So I think for some of us, we have to understand what we're going in, what we're up against, and not to have unrealistic expectations about how the company is going to treat you, how your peers are going to treat you, what the role is going to entail, right? You have to, as they say, kind of just, I don't want to say count the cost, right? Because that's kind of different, but you really have to go in knowing and having this, this just kind of sense of, I don't expect anything other than what white supremacy has handed out to us over the last, I don't know how many decades and centuries, right? And so despite the work and the progress that we're trying to make and going forward and all these initiatives, all of that, that's great. But at the end of the day, most companies out there, they're only worried about their bottom line. That is it. I don't care. And you can see this now because for most organizations, you still have DEI being placed under HR. And let me tell you why that is. It's because they see it as compliance, right? They don't see it as anything other than a tool, because usually HR deals with all of that, like compliance and making sure that, the employees take the quote unquote mandatory surveys that they need to. So if God forbid or whatever, like they get sued for racial or sexual discrimination, they can say that they check these boxes, right? So this is why DEI sits under HR currently. And that's why so many organizations keep it there. So how you deal with it, you have to understand the system, you have to know the system, and you have to go in with this mindset that I'm coming in here to take away what I need to take away. Whether that's just a paycheck to feed my family, whether that's some money to, be able to just start my own business on the side. I'm not here for friends. I'm not here to make you like me. I'm not here for you to respect me. I'm here, you know what I mean? Like, and these things should happen, but at the end of the day, most of the time it's not, right? So when you, like I did at one time, when I went into an organization and I had the expectation that the Black person who I reported to was going to be, like a motherly figure to me, but she on the plantation still and had a plantation mindset, right? And that traumatized me. That really traumatized me, because I just couldn't believe that there was another Black woman in the C-suite position, the only one who was aligning with, the white folks and their agenda. So again, go in with no expectations except to cover yourself, whether that's making sure that you have all your receipts, making sure you get things documented, so you can just be about your business and move on to the next.
And I think that's the part that's so disheartening, that folks, the reality of it is sometimes you have to go in that way, right? And I think naturally as human beings, we do long to feel that sense of belonging, right? We want to have friends. We want to be cool.
We do.
Like we do, even in as much as we say it to ourselves, you find yourself going into an organization, you're like, okay, who can I buddy up with, right? Like who can support me? Naturally as human beings, that's how we react. And
right.
I think that's what makes it so difficult, because it's like, okay, we need to do this for us, but then in return, there's still that level of how can I connect with someone else, and
you gotta be very careful about who you connect with too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's a whole nother conversation, and I may have to invite all three of you right back for that. Goodness, this conversation is so good. So many folks are chiming in right now. Let's see what. Goodness, someone said yes. It's a great place for some people. Happened to me recently. Great conversation. Y'all are the real MVPs. People are also restating that quote. I have no illusion of inclusion. Right, that's the harsh reality. Goodness, yeah. People are commenting away. Is there anything else that you all would like to add before we end? Because I know we're almost out of time, but anything else along the lines of really sharing stories and workplace experiences in order to guide others?
Yeah, I'd love to just add, kind of to what you're saying, like, how do you deal with that? Because we do want to connect. And it's, I love what you're doing with Dipper, because this probably will allow people to connect with people and be transparent, because although you have to go into the workplace kind of with that mindset of like, oh, like if this ain't it, it's not going to be it. They're not going to treat me like like my full self. You do also in tandem have to develop trust in something and someone, because a lot of us come from really traumatic trust backgrounds. And if we continue that in the workplace, we continue that in our like adult lives, that's just going to perpetuate the trauma, perpetuate everything. So wherever you get it, whether it's at your company or a different company, or you have friends like that work in the same industry or have tools Dipper, still work on trust. Yes, put on your armor, put everything on, but then also leave a little space for people who actually can help support you. Because, like, for example, Netta, you've done this with me. Like, if I came at you and was like, I don't know what Netta's talking about, I'm not gonna be on here, then this wouldn't be an opportunity. So it's giving trust and allowing people to prove you wrong, maybe. And that's really hard. Again, really hard to do, but also with certain people allowing for that to happen.
Awesome. So powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Future, any final words for you?
I think my final words is don't go it alone. If the last year and a half has literally taught us anything, it's taught us that there's lots of individuals that have the same experience. And you don't have to be on social media posting something to, look what happened to me. If you just reach out to a few of your friends or sign up for your app, there's so many different connections. That's the beauty in the internet. It has many negatives, but the beauty is we have connection and we have unity, and don't do it alone. Because at the end of the day, I keep telling people we're in a mental marathon. And if your mind isn't right, everything else will fall apart. And don't do that to yourself.
Absolutely. So, oh my gosh, powerful, powerful. Thank you so much. I want to just share some of these questions. Someone said, how would you suggest telling a prospective employer the reason for leaving the toxic environment you just left?
Yeah. So I'll take that kind of as a recruiter, right? Remember, you're still selling yourself, so you can't just be like, "Hey, like they were toxic, it was trash." Like you can't go at like that. But what you can do is talk about your values, and you can talk about what you want to see the company do, and not just say. And so if you approach it that way about your values and speaking about how that aligns to the company's values and the kind of impact you want to make, when that alignment is in place and the resources are in place, then you can kind of say, hey, they weren't shit, but in a very professional way, right? Because keeping in mind that they're putting on a front, and also you have to kind of put on a front too, because you're selling yourself, right? You're selling the best part of yourself. So not saying lie or anything like that, but just put on, just be mindful that recruiters are looking for certain answers and they're looking at certain parameters. So always keep in mind when answering these questions, like there's going to be very few people it could be like this conversation level real with in the recruiting process.
Yeah, definitely. Aisha, this one is for you. Do you believe that it is naive to believe that we have allies? If so, how should we navigate those relationships when weighed against focusing on teaming up internally to do the work? And this is from one of our viewers.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand the question. The first part is it naive to believe that we have allies? And the second part about teaming up, can you just repeat that part? Sorry.
Yeah, if so, how should we navigate those relationships when weighed against focusing on teaming up internally to do the work?
That's a great question. Okay. I don't believe it's naive to think that we have allies. I think it's naive to believe that we have more allies than we actually do. I think that there is only a small percentage right now, unfortunately, of white America who is willing and able to not only talk about equity, inclusion, social justice, right, but also willing to lose something for that cause, and also is willing to put up something for that cause. And I remember distinctly, I was on Clubhouse and I was with John Graham, who actually has a book coming out called Plantation Theory, which I'm so excited about. It's dropping Juneteenth. Y'all go make sure y'all check that out, along with signing up at Dipper.com. But so he asked the room, it was a room full of like white women, right? So I believe the first part of the question he asked them was about the understanding of, I guess, like what's happening to Black folks in America and so forth. A lot of conversation. Then he asked, well, now that you know about it, well, what are you going to do about it? It was silent. It was crickets. And it's not because people don't know exactly what to do. It's because they don't want to take the time, the investment. They don't want to give up, again, what it takes to make equity happen, right? Because if you go into corporate America, you can't tell your boss, I don't know how to figure this problem out. People are figuring out problems every single day, right? They are jumping through hoops to make sure that problems are solved. Like DEI is probably like the only function that you don't get fired for if you don't hit your metrics, because they don't care. So I don't think it's naive to believe that we have allies, but do not overestimate how many that you have, and do not believe everyone that says they're an ally is an ally. And also do not just take what they say for face value. The second part of that question, how do you navigate those relationships? That's a really good question. I personally call people out on things like that because I can't work with you and I can't really get to the point where we want to get to if you're actually doing more harm when we're trying to rectify and redress that harm, right? So I'm the type of person that will lovingly point out things that are problematic with your allyship, if we want to call it that, and really just have a discussion about ways that they can continue to learn, right? Unlearn and relearn, and then see where the conversation goes from there. Fake allies is actually a whole section in my book that I'm writing about, which I'm excited for. But for me, it's all about transparency. I know some people are more afraid and not able to kind of like navigate those conversations and understand. And maybe in the book, I'll write about some tools and things that are help in that perspective. But for me, it's all about being honest, right? Like I understand and saying here that you want to be an ally to the community, but let me help you understand why this action is problematic. Let me help you understand why what you just said was problematic, because I will love for us to move forward towards the same goal of XYZ, whatever it is. If they become defensive and don't want to respond, well, then you know where they sit, right? But if they're open to the conversation, because I've had a couple of people be open to conversations when I pointed out something that they did was problematic as a white person in their intensive allyship, then that just goes to show that, you know, that's an ally in progress that they can really be worked on. But the other people are just like sitting on their high horse and, you know, doing it for whatever sake. So I'm so sorry that was long-winded and way over time, but that's my answer.
let me just say thank you all for such incredible gems that you dropped today. Amazing. I think people are taking notes. Maybe folks have like their whole notebook filled with gems just from like this 35-minute conversation, and we went over. So again, thank you to all professionals of color. Connect with us on ourdipper.com right now by signing up and completing your profile on ourdipper.com so that we can unpack all the gems that our guest dropped today. Also be sure to rate and review all companies that you have worked for on ourdipper.com. Sign up, be the guide to a better workplace, log in to share your voice and find your space. And again, thank you for joining, and we hope to see you on ourdipper.com. Bye.